Well, hey guys, welcome back. Today I'm with my friend Dave Martin. Dave's a pretty cool guy. He goes to my church. He's also a life coach, a retired chief from the military. He's got a master's in Christian counseling. He's also a pastor, so he's got quite the track record of serving in different endeavors. So thanks for hanging out with me today,
I
Dave.
appreciate you having me, Tim.
So, guys, I'm not really sure what we're going to talk about today specifically, but we know that we have a message for you. So Dave and I started our life coaching businesses full throttle about the same time, about sometime around this time last year-ish. Isn't that accurate?
2019.
2019. Okay, so he's got a little time on me. And we've seen ups and downs, but we know that the goal for what we do is to help you understand who you are, specifically in Jesus. And if you don't believe in Jesus, that's okay. We want to help you understand that you are worthy of being loved and how to do that adequately in your life so that you can receive everything that Jesus has for you because, well, it's a truth.
Amen.
So, Dave, why don't you just tell people a little bit about what you do?
Okay.
His company, Too Stupid to Fail, with a T-O.
Yep. Yeah.
I believe. Tell them what that is, how you started it, what you're about.
Excellent. Appreciate you, Tim, for inviting me over and having me talk to you guys today. So in 2019, I started a company called Too Stupid to Fail. And so if you want to find it online, it's tostupidtofail.com. So I did spell it incorrectly on purpose because I guess I don't want you to find me, but the company itself is TOO, Stupid to Fail, and so that's how that's spelled. But so basically, what happened was over a lifetime of service, right? I joined the Air Force. I did that for 30 years, and then while I was in the Air Force, after about 7 years of serving, my wife and I gave our lives to Jesus Christ. And then so I was like on this parallel track to where as I was growing up in the Air Force, I was also growing up in the church. And then so what happened?
That's an interesting dichotomy.
Yeah, it was. It really was. I kind of struggled with that for a while. It's like, how do you grow as a Christian while supporting, a military? And I had some great pastors kind of explain some things to me about that. But anyway, so what I did was I kind of grew up in both of those simultaneously. And the beauty of it is both of those taught me a lot about leadership, a lot about serving, a lot about selflessness, because both of them are very much living for something larger than yourself. And then they both allowed me the opportunity to, get formal education, right? So as I was serving in the military, I got an undergrad degree, and then I got my master's degree in Christian counseling. And then on the Christian side of the house, I was able to become a licensed minister of the gospel. And then just as I was getting ready to retire from the military, I became an ordained pastor, and I was set out to pastor churches. And that was the first thing I did when I retired from the military. Is I pastored a church up in New Hampshire for a couple of years. And then in 2018, so I retired in 2016. In 2018, we felt called to North Carolina to be closer to our grandkids who my daughter and her family lived in Fayetteville, North Carolina. So Winston-Salem was a couple hours away from Fayetteville. And so my wife and I moved down here in 2018 to be closer to them. And then in 2019 is when I started the life coaching business.
Now, I'm really curious, what inspired you to start it? Because you said that you started off in the military.
Yep.
And then you started learning who Jesus was then.
Yep.
And you had learned leadership, you had learned goal setting and achievement. Like that's your forte.
Yep.
And then you moved down here. And I guess, when did you become a teacher?
So I got hired in December of 2018.
Okay, so a year prior to starting Too Stupid.
Correct. And then I started teaching January of 2019. And then November 2019 is when I started Too Stupid to Fail.
Gotcha. I think that's interesting because as a teacher, that is the prime, I guess, environment to teach people, for lack of better terms, you know?
Yep.
And that's kind of what we do, because you and I were discussing downstairs that we don't really do it. We haven't really invented anything new. We're just rehashing the things that we've learned and the things that have helped us and that have been taught to us over the years. And the people that taught us that just learned it from somebody else. Right. So what was it about life coaching and the arena that we're in right now, or what does that afford you that teaching did not?
Honestly, I think it was the groups of people that I get to help. So number one, when you're teaching, so I'm teaching Air Force Junior ROTC, and when you're teaching at high school and you're teaching Junior ROTC, you get a certain curriculum that you have to teach, right? And so you have everything that the school prescribes that you have to teach, right? And Air University says you have to teach. And of course, there are things in there like values and morals, and you have to teach all of those things. And that's great. And so if you will, your client is 14 to 19, kind of depending on the student and their academic acuity, you know, and that kind of stuff. But when you get into life coaching, your customer or the people that you get to help, that customer base opens widely, right? And I've helped people who are, 15 years old, but I also work with people that are 60 years old. And so you get to work with people that are in nearly every life stage. And so having that breadth or that wide group of people, to me is an amazing thing. And I think I really get that passion for that kind of client base from being a pastor, right? You know, so when I was in the military, and again, growing up in the church over the last 27 years, I really got a pleasure from serving that greater group of people. So I love my teenagers in school and drill and shooting rifles and flying drones and doing those things. But the group of people that you get to serve with, you know, the family dynamics, the professional dynamic, all of the challenges that a greater group of people bring to a life coach is very challenging for me as an individual, for me as a pastor, for me as a master life coach. And I really love to see where those people kind of latch onto those concepts and they employ those techniques, and I love to see success being made in their lives. And so that's the passion that drives me to do that.
Gotcha. And one of your big things is breaking down artificial barriers.
Yep.
Well, there's like 3 tenets of Too Stupid to Fail. What were those again?
So it's removing artificial barriers.
Okay.
Eliminating negative internal dialogue, and developing fail-proof ways to succeed, ... or not.
I gotcha.
Yeah.
Dialogue. Okay. So the reason I had Dave hang out with me today and talk is, first, I wanted to introduce him to you guys. But secondly, I wanted to go in a little bit more depth to what he does and all this stuff, removing artificial barriers, you know, changing the inner dialogue.
Yep.
So when you start with a new client, guys, if this sounds like something that you need, please, you know, accept it. It's free of charge, whatever. This is for you today. And if you've got artificial barriers, if you've got the dialogue, pay attention, because he knows this stuff. Yeah, that's it. And we don't have to be perfect to do this either.
That's right.
So with removing artificial barriers, you mentioned earlier that for you, a lot of times people don't even realize that they have barriers, right? And it's kind of like the dead fish floating down the stream mechanic. You know, you don't realize you're floating downstream because that's how it's always been. That's the narrative of your environment.
Yeah.
How do you help people with that? And what does that process look like?
Okay. So first of all, the name, Too Stupid to Fail, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that name was created from my background, and so when I was growing up, I was told you're stupid, you're good for nothing, should have never happened, you're nothing but a Murphy, you're nothing but a Martin, and so what I did was I used that kind of language. And instead of allowing it to tear me down, I used it as a motivation to propel me to greater things. Okay. So understanding that concept in the name of Too Stupid to Fail, right? You can call me stupid, and yes, I'm so stupid that what you might see as barriers in your life, right? Because smart people see all the barriers that are out there. Okay. I don't, because I'm pretty stupid.
I guess it's kind of in line with things like social awareness. That's something that I didn't have growing up because I wasn't really well socialed with other kids. And so I came out into the world, and it's like, well, Tim, why don't you know these things? I don't know. I mean, I just never thought about it.
Right. And I was thrust into the world, meaning my family disintegrated when I was 14 years old. And so I was pretty much on my own. And so when you have to grow up really quick, people who know things and they're 4, 5, 6 years older than you, so they're more, they're street smart, they're older, they know because of the natural progress of their lives. They know these things, and you don't at 13, 14 years old. And so therefore you kind of go through life doing things without being fully prepared to make those decisions. Okay, so that's Too Stupid to Fail. But in Too Stupid to Fail, what I learned was we have barriers, and oftentimes those barriers are truly artificial. And this is what I mean by that. And there's 3 artificial barriers that I speak to. Okay, the first one is the first artificial barrier is right between our ears. Okay, and that is, how many times have we made a decision to do something to only turn right around and talk ourselves out of that decision? Okay, so there's the first artificial barrier, and I'll give you a life example. Okay, when my family fell apart, my mother moved me to my father's house, who I hadn't lived with since I was 2 years old because they divorced when I was 2. He lived 4 cities away from where I went to high school. Okay, I knew that I was not going to go to the high school that the school district that my father lived in. So the first barrier that I took down was the one between my ears. I said, I'm not going to that high school. I'm going to my old high school. So right there, the first artificial barrier was the decision that I need to make in my mind, right? That I'm going that way. Okay, the next artificial barrier is, are we going to do what it takes to get from where we are to where we're going? In my case, I needed to get on a public bus from New Britain to Plainville, get on another public bus from Plainville to Forestville, and then I had to walk up to my old school bus stop, get on my school bus, and go to high school.
Wow, that's pretty... Man, I couldn't even walk down my driveway as a kid going to high school.
Right. But this is artificial barrier. And maybe if you were put in that position, Tim, you may have removed the first artificial barrier and made a decision. No, I'm going to my old high school. Okay. And you may have thought, well, how am I going to get there? I'm going to take this bus, and then I'm going to take that bus, and then I'm going to walk up to my old school bus, and then I'm going to go to school. Okay. And then the third artificial barrier is a little bit more difficult, but I'll share real quick how we can overcome that as adults and really find success in our lives. The other one, the last artificial barrier, okay, so we have one between our ears. The next artificial barrier is those things that we have within our sphere of influence. It's the things that we can directly influence: getting on that bus, walking up to our school bus stop. The third one that can be a little bit more difficult, but can definitely we can have an effect over, are those things that are seemingly outside of our sphere of influence. Okay? Here was the thing that was seemingly outside of my sphere of influence. School districting. If my school was fully aware that I was 4 city removed from their school district, I probably wouldn't have been able to continue to go to Bristol Central High School. They would have said, you're outside of our school district, you need to go to that school. But because I got off the same school bus every day, and I got on the same school bus every day, and I stayed out of trouble, they never had to call my parents, none of that stuff, I was able to continue to go to that school and then graduate and all that stuff. Okay? Mm-hmm. So, but you're saying, well, that's kind of breaking rules, and maybe you shouldn't do that, and you shouldn't advocate. You're right. I wouldn't advocate that people simply break the rules. But this is what I learned growing up, and this is what I advised people in the future, right? Now I'm in the Air Force, right? And I'm leading people, and they're looking at possibly getting job promotions or going after that next big thing. And this is how that translated into my leadership style later. What I would tell them was, make the system say no. Make the system say no, because this is what you'll do. First of all, between your ears, you'll say, I want to go after that and get it. And then you'll say, I'm going to do what it takes to go after that and get it. And then you're going to get barracks lawyers, and you're going to get other people to say, well, you're not the right person. Don't go after that. They've already picked, the person they're going to pick. They're just doing the show. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to sit here and look at you, Tim. I'm going to say, is that what you want, Tim? Right? Have you made a decision in your mind to go after that? Have you done everything that you possibly can within your sphere of influence to get that thing? And you're like, yeah, but everybody's telling me I'm never going to get it. And then, Tim, I'd look at you and say, if that's what you want, even though that decision is seemingly outside of your control, go after it. Mm-hmm. Go after it. That's how, when I talk about removing artificial barriers, because time and time again, I have mentored people and I have led people, and I say, go after that third artificial barrier. And oftentimes in my life, in other people's lives, when they went after that third artificial barrier, mm-hmm. people have reached levels of success that they never thought possible. Mm-hmm. So when it comes to goal setting, and I look at those 3 pieces of removing that artificial barrier, that is one key step that clients will work through. People, not even my clients, mm-hmm. go to church, people in my life, whatever. If I'm going to motivate and lead people to go after what it is that they're working towards, that's one way that I'm going to try to get them from where they are to where they want to be.
Okay, so let me make sure that I heard you properly. Yep. So this is talking about removing artificial barriers. Yep. 3 things. Understand the decision that you need to make.
Yep.
2, do what it takes within the realm of what you can actually do. And, I talk to my clients and people I mentor also about this. What is your personal responsibility? Because there's only so much in the world that you can control.
Yep.
And that is you. You can't control other people. So what can you do?
Yep.
And then 3rd, I wrote down 2 things. Learn how to respond well to your environment and don't give up.
That's right.
You got to be too stupid to fail.
That's right. Because the world, people, yeah. The world, it's a mean place out there.
Yeah, it sounds really simplistic to do this. There is a good friend that I have in my life right now, and Brandon, mm-hmm. With ThoughtRate and everything that we're doing, this is essentially him. He decided, I want to do this. Yep. Doing what it takes that he can. He wakes up and he's like, okay, well, what can I do today? He goes through the research and development process, then the action process, and then we come together and it's like, well, let me reevaluate. What are my results? What should I change? What can I do differently next time? And not giving up. What advice would you give to people who are doing that but are not receiving the result that they want?
Well, there's always, again, a reevaluation. Is there something in the process that can be maybe tweaked, adjusted? It may be sometimes we have to go back to the original goal, possibly. I know Stephen Covey and other, leaders out there. I might be dating myself with Stephen Covey, but there are other leaders sometimes, where they talk about, leaning your ladder against the right wall, and those kind of things. I've done that, and I know other people have done that. There are a few different things that we could do with respect to when things are not working out. This is the one thing, and maybe it's education, maybe it is a promotion, or maybe it is a life decision like that. But the one thing, especially like education, because I know there are people out there who are going through the process of education. I'm working with a client right now who went far in his education and for instance didn't finish, and I had this conversation. I have a 30-year-old daughter, I have a 28-year-old son, and I remember when they were going through struggles during their education process and wanting to give up and those kind of things. And the one conversation that we had, and I would encourage anybody out there, if you're in the middle of a process, and as you're going through that process, maybe you're looking at where you're headed, and you're like, well, wait a second, this isn't the direction I necessarily wanted to go in. But specifically like education, what I told them is, keep pressing forward. Like my undergrad, I was kind of like moving in this direction. I said, well, this isn't necessarily the direction I want to go in anymore. But you know what I did, Tim? I went and I crossed the finish line. And this, especially with education, because once you get that degree, nobody can ever take it away from you. Okay? And I'm not saying education is the end all be all. But what I'm saying is you've made the decision. You've mapped out how you're going to get from where you are to where you want to be. Okay? And then we're heading in that direction. We're like, I don't know. Do I really want to go there? What I'm encouraging you to do is go and get that, because this is where course correction comes, right? So, because I wasn't a strong student, I had to take remedial reading. I stayed back in first grade, took remedial reading when I was 16, right? Graduated from high school, went to a technical college. I graduated with a 2.2 GPA. That's all C's and 1 B. Don't ask me what I got a B in, but I did. And then I took some more courses while I was in the military, and then I finally got a high enough GPA to where I can go in and get a undergrad degree. Okay, and then I was headed down this undergrad degree, and I noticed that my vector wasn't where I wanted to go. It wasn't what I wanted to do. But you know what I did, guys? I kept going, and I crossed that finish line, and I got my GPA, and this was the thing, right? I got my undergrad, and I got a 3.5 GPA. Well, guess what a 3.5 GPA will get you in undergrad? It'll get you in a master's program, right? Because once I got to the end of my undergrad degree, I knew what I wanted to do. I wanted to be a pastor, right? I wanted to be a counselor. So guess what my master's degree is? Christian counseling. You see what I'm saying? So even though we might, set goals, and we might be headed down somewhere, and then maybe we're 2/3 of the way or 3/4 of the way there, and maybe we kind of realize, well, maybe we're not exactly getting to where we want to be. And same thing with my daughter, or my son, because, we have this idea that, okay, I'm going to go after this because we want to get after that one thing. Like my daughter, she was getting her undergrad degree in communication. And I remember talking to her, I said, when you get your undergrad degree, yes, you have a degree in communication, but that's going to open you up to 2,000 plus job opportunities. And your passion is out there. We can, make sure our original goal is right. We can make some tweaks with respect to the steps that we're taking, or we can hold fast and let's just see it to the end. and then reevaluate, reset our goal, and then start the process over.
Yeah, and I think it's doing this process is interesting as a Christian, especially because I say this lightly. We have an unfair advantage, and truly everybody has the opportunity to have that advantage because we have the Holy Spirit to kind of guide us down the right path. And, the Bible says that the sheep hear my voice. It's talking about us hearing God's voice. And if we're really submitted to what God wants us to do, he wants the best, because the Bible also says that he has plans to prosper us, not harm us. Yeah. Right. And so navigating this and staying true and staying refocused, I think it's a lot more simplistic and refined when you follow Jesus. But if you don't follow Jesus, you have to just stay focused on what your goal is. And that sounds super simplistic too, but it's a lot more difficult when you have all these things of the world that are trying to draw you and distract you and confuse you, especially with social media. Man, if you say, oh, I want to buy a house and my price limit is $200,000, it's like, great, let's look at homes that are $200,000. This is beautiful. And then you see somebody on social media that's looking at a house that's $400,000 and you get distracted because you start comparing. Yeah. And I think comparison kills a lot of this. Yeah. Because, guys, I know that when I've been focused on something and I've been pushing forward, as you said, I made the decision, I'm doing what it takes, and I'm learning to respond to my environment. When you get tired, when you get exhausted, when you feel like you're not enough, when you feel like your endeavors are fruitless, you start looking around comparing, okay, well, what am I judging my success on? Am I judging it on based on where I want to go? Or am I judging it on this person who's also doing what I'm doing in a similar fashion and they're seeing different or better success? And then you start thinking, oh, well, is it because of their background? Is it because of who they are inherently? Maybe they have more value than I do. Maybe that's why they're succeeding more than I am. And it gets so much easier to quit. So, your second thing is addressing internal dialogue. Yeah. I think we should transition into that. So,
Can I share a truth with you? And I think this is important because we were talking about setting goals, adjusting goals, right? And then seeing things through. Because you and I were talking about this at your dinner table. Okay, so I'm bearing my soul here, being completely transparent. Tim and I were talking earlier about this life coaching journey, and I'll speak for myself. Because when I did start, because Tim is correct. I restarted Too Stupid to Fail the same time Tim started Break the Meta, right? And so I started in 2019, and I'm being completely transparent. Didn't have anything to do with God, right? Because I'm doing the pastor thing. And I'm teaching in school, and I'm talking about Jesus. I'm the kind of person who will walk up to you and you do Jesus, and people are like, whoa, this dude's a weirdo, right? And so when I started Too Stupid to Fail, I said, I'm going to love people, and I'm going to coach them, and I'm going to give them, everything that they might hear in church, but I'm just not going to mention Jesus.
Mm-hmm. Oh, you want a bigger audience, of course.
I want a bigger audience, right? And hear me while I'm telling you, people. I had videos on Facebook that were getting thousands of views. YouTube channel. Doing all. I wrote an article in the magazine. I was telling Tim. My website had, and I'm not bragging. I'm being transparent. I wrote an article in the magazine, and my website was getting regular 400 views a month. Wrote the article, went up to 4,000 views. I told Tim, how many contracts did I get out of all of that? Thousands of views on my videos, 4,000 hits on my website after writing for Transformation Coaching Magazine. 0 contracts. 0. Went through real tough time. I shut down Too Stupid to Fail. I did everything, all the marketing, shut it all down. The only thing I didn't do was write to the state of North Carolina and said, revoke my tax number and shut it down legally. I shut everything else down except the final legal step of revoking it, paying my dues and my fees and my taxes. I did everything else. If you went to Too Stupid to Fail, TOstupidtofail.com, if you went to that website, all you would have seen at that time was a cross. That's all you would have seen. No programs, no videos, no podcast, nothing. And I had a come to Jesus meeting with me and pastors and counseling and my wife. And God said, through other people, I had some prophetic people praying with me, and God said, I'm going to do something. And there are no Facebook videos. None, I'm not doing anything that I was before the relaunch and Break the Meta came out. I'm not doing anything like the same. And since then, you'll see there's Christian counseling out there. I'm doing some podcasts on the radio, and right away, we're talking about Jesus right out of the gate, because it was taking that ladder, like I just talked about, and I moved it from what I thought Too Stupid to Fail was going to be. And God and I had a conversation, and we aligned it. And I'll tell you, Tim, I am so at peace, and I don't have to worry about tomorrow. We were talking about how this conversation was going to go, and I told him, before the relaunch, you would have had a script, right? It was like that. And he really didn't have anything. He's like, who are you? And you said, okay, I have this. We had one line on this piece of paper.
Who are you? And guys, I want to pause there real quick. When you are talking about what you're doing with your life, look at your social media, look at how you engage with people, look at how you introduce yourself. There's so many of us that think, oh, well, I need all these accolades, I need all these titles, I need all this status, I need all these qualifiers, I need these abbreviations before my name to have value. And when you talk about the purpose of your life, it begins with who are you? It begins with identity. And honestly, it ends with identity too. All the stuff that you store up for yourself, Dave was talking about education. I was talking about a house and finances. There's all these things that you can aspire towards and try to attain. And the issue with that is the more you acquire, the more you have to maintain, especially when you assign your identity to it. And that doesn't just stop there. It also goes to sexuality. I mean, it's everything, right? Yeah. But it starts and it ends with who you are. And when you wake up tomorrow, that's what you have to focus on. It's like, okay, who am I? What do I have to give? Because, in the Old Testament, Moses, crazy awesome dude, he wasn't crazy awesome initially when he was before God, and God was like, I want you to go to Egypt and set my people free. Moses gave him 3 or 4 or 5 objections. He said, I'm not smart enough. Well, I can't speak. Moses had a stutter. I'm not wealthy enough. Who am I? I'm just and God said, well, what do you have? Right? Oh, I have a stick. Okay, we'll throw it on the ground. Let's use that. And that's the crazy thing. Society will try and convince you otherwise. Society will try to convince you that you need more than what you have. But really, you just have to be too stupid to not quit.
That's right.
That's it.
Just stupid to fail.
Yeah, T-O. Stupid.
Just be available, man.
Yeah. So
eliminating negative internal dialogue.
Yeah, and I think it's really cool that one of your main focuses is helping people get focused, understand what they need to do, and then just continue to refocus. And that's what you did in your own life.
Yep.
Yeah, and then your internal dialogue. What was that like? Because you mentioned that you were a father, you are a pastor, were retired chief from the military. Yep. You're a certified life coach. You're an ordained minister. You're a husband. You're all these things, and yet when you went back to the drawing board, all that stuff had to come off the table. What was your dialogue like within yourself?
Yeah, that's good. So another confession: coaches need coaches. Right? Counselors need counselors, pastors need pastors. And I mean that. I still go through stuff, right? Former military, I got PTSD issues I need to deal with. I get counseling from pastors at church, and all those things, right? I'm not doing this because I got it all figured out. I'm doing it because I might be able to help a few people. And that's what I hope to do, right? I got lifelong desire to live for something larger than myself, right? I want to be used by Jesus to help other people. So eliminating negative internal dialogue, the backstory to that is exactly what I introduced to you guys earlier. When 0 to 13, I heard things like, you're stupid, you're good for nothing, you're nothing but a Murphy. My last name was Murphy for 10 years. My stepfather adopted me and my siblings. And so from my biological father, when I did see him, he's like, you're nothing but a Murphy. And when my stepfather was like, you're nothing but a Martin. So all these horrible things. Well, and then when my family fell apart, and I was kind of bouncing around. Technically, I was homeless for about 3 years. And I moved in with this family, and they let me live in their basement. And what I heard from them was the father, Richard and Judith Lissy is their name. And what they said was, I remember Judy, she said, Murph, she said, funny people are smart. And you're really funny. And she would say that to me because when you're traumatized as a kid, you do something with that. So I try to find the humor in everything. And so I started hearing, funny people are smart and you're really funny. So I started hearing, you're really smart. And then Richard would say, you're a good kid, Murph. But they would say this over and over again. So I went from you're stupid, you're good for nothing, you should have never happened, you're nothing but a Murph, you're nothing but a Martin, to you're really smart and you're really good. And I kept hearing that and there's a thing called the consequence of belief. And when we hear something enough, we believe it. Mm-hmm. And so what happened over this 3-year period when I was living with the Lissys is they let me fall apart, if you will, mentally and emotionally, and allow me to kind of put myself back together. And when I was putting myself back together, they were kind of putting me back together with this glue of you're really smart and you're really good. And that's when I got when I was 16, I went to remedial reading. And then Judy was like, my grades started getting better. And she was like, you need to go to Hartford State Tech because I was abandoned when I was 14. It was like the state of Connecticut will pay for you to go to school. And they did. And then when I was getting ready to graduate from Hartford State Tech, she was like, you need to go to UConn, right? Mm-hmm. The state of Connecticut will pay for you to go to UConn. What she didn't know was Richard was like, you need to join the Marine Corps because he was a Marine. He's like, you need to join the Marine Corps. They'll make a man out of you. And so I did. I went right down the middle and I joined the Air Force. And, so when I joined the Air Force, I had 2 people who were not biologically attached to me, who loved me so much that I really wanted to please them. I really did. And so when I made Chief Master Sergeant, that's the highest enlisted grade you can make. Richard Lissy was dying from Lou Gehrig's disease. Mm-hmm. And so I remember I flew home and I had one of my Chief Master Sergeant chevrons with my promotion number in there. And inside, this is too stupid to fail. This is why I do what I do. Inside, I had the chevron, and on the inside of that, I had it engraved. And I said, I give because you gave. They didn't, dude, I was long hair. I'm smoking weed and cigarettes, leather jacket. I was a punk. I was what was wrong with society back then. Drinking, I was a hurt kid. My family fell apart when I was 14. I was mad. Mm-hmm. And here's this family who knew me since I was 11 years old. And they sat me down and they're like, Murph, we can see that you need help. And they're like, he brought me downstairs. He pulled out a queen, it was a couch. He pulled out the bed. He threw a mattress on it and said, welcome home. Mm-hmm. Sleep in our basement. And then over the next couple of years, they did this and they started reprogramming this thought process. And so that's where the eliminating negative internal dialogue goes. And that's what I do with people that are willing to work with me or allow me to work with them, right? I'll spend time and we'll get into self-awareness, and what I tell people, and I got this from Natalie and Joel Rivera, and they're the owners of Transformation Academy, where I got my Master Life Coach certification. They have this thing when we go through self-awareness, and they talk about this internal dialogue, and they give it a name. They call it Bob, right? See, because we're not what we think or what we feel. That's not who we are, right? We're a soul, right? And if we're in Christ or Christ is in us, that's who we are, spirit and soul. We're not our thoughts and our feelings, okay? They're real and they're there. Mm-hmm. But the cool thing is when we get those thoughts and those feelings, guess what we get to do? We get to sit back and observe them. We're like, mm-hmm. Oh, well, that's an interesting thought, right? That's an interesting feeling. And there's this gap between soul and spirit and thought and feeling. And then we get to decide how we're going to respond to that. Mm-hmm. It doesn't own us. We own it. And so that's part of what we talk about, as life coach and client, or, as what I call partners, right? Because we're a goal-setting, result-achieving partner. Mm-hmm. So when we start working together, we're going to say, all right, man, let's talk about that internal dialogue, right? Let's get that self-awareness. And when you get that thought, when you get that feeling, when Bob shows up, mm-hmm. How are you going to engage with Bob? Because once you name it, right, now you can have a relationship
Shut up, Bob.
Exactly. You need to eject Bob. I know it sounds kind of crazy, but trust me, I've used this with clients. And you know what? They'll send me a text. And they're like, man, I just gave Bob the boot. And I'm like, yeah, we're having victory. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So anyway, that's a little bit about eliminating negative internal dialogue.
So what do you do when you have a situation where you identify with somebody that they are failing to take personal responsibility over their Bob?
Now that's a great question. Because I serve and I work with people that are 1,000 miles away, mm-hmm. right? I work with people that are next door, if you will, and I work with people that are 1,000 miles away. The best thing that we can do, if we can do it, is this going to be a team effort. So I've had the pleasure so far of working with other people where I can kind of work with people that are in close physical proximity. The other thing I do sometimes is you got to do tough love, right? So if I'm working with somebody and they're not willing to put the work in, then again, we might have to adjust our strategy. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? With respect to, they need to step up to the plate and do their part. You know what I mean? But then again, the thing that we have to consider is the why. Why are we not getting from there to there, right? Because there's an entire process that we can go through, right? And here's the thing. Let's just say, for instance, we partner together, we set goals, right? And we're going to achieve results. And let's say that you and I are working together and you want to lose weight or something, it's a goal, something, a fitness goal or something, but we're not getting there. You're not getting there, right? Or whatever. Then you and I might go back to a conversation because this is what's going to happen. What we need to do mentally and emotionally is we need to make sure that where you are is not comfortable, right? Or it's so painful that you can no longer remain there. That's what we need to create, psychologically, emotionally, whatever. Okay, but we need to make sure that when you and I, like for instance, here's a perfect example. I had a gentleman reach out to me middle of last week, and we're going to meet for dinner on Tuesday. And this is exactly how the conversation went, right? So far, we've just been kind of emailing, texting each other. And this was the conversation. when I have a conversation with this guy over dinner, what I said to him is, we'll get together and we're going to talk about exactly what he needs, what I can provide. And then together we're going to decide, right, if we can work together, right? Because it's not just me saying, hey, we're going to go ahead and, please buy my contract. That's not
why my 6-step process.
Yeah, that's not what it is. I'm going to look at this guy and I'm going to be like, how much do you want this change? Right?
Mm-hmm.
Because
that's a really good question to ask.
It is. How much do you want this change? So for those of you that are out there, I've had this conversation with people because we agreed that we're going to meet like Zoom, phone call. We're going to meet in person. Okay. Like Tim asked me to be here today at 3:30. So prior military, look at my haircut. What time did I show up today?
3:18.
Okay. See what I'm saying? So when we say that we're going to call or talk or Zoom at 3:30 and you're calling me at 3:43, my first question is, why am I talking to you at 3:43? Okay, so at first it might be, and we talked about this, at first it might be some tough love, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And at first it might be meeting heavy, contact heavy, right? Because we need to know that we set an environment, we set a balance, we set what I like to call a battle rhythm, right? We're going to set a battle rhythm to where things are ticking. And then once we get there, then we can start tapering off. And then what I was telling Tim today, I'm working with a client right now, and right now we're in maintenance. Okay, so that maintenance contract or that maintenance agreement is multiple contacts over a longer period of time. Why? Because in the short-term contract, you've demonstrated to me that you are serious about change. And you've done everything that you needed to up to this point to really initiate and implement the change. And now we can go to maintenance. Mm-hmm. I can help you with course correction. I can give you, the next steps to take. You'll provide the evidence that you're making those changes and those kind of things.
Yeah, in my close friend group, we refer to something as cook time. It's when somebody needs just a little bit more time before they're ready.
Yep.
How do you engage with people? Because there are lots of people like this. Because there are so many things in your life that you need to change. Mm. You know that.
Yep.
You and I know that. Yep. We all know that. There's so many things. Like for me, better workout habits, better eating habits, better ethical mental habits, better relational. There's so much stuff, And the cool thing about conviction is God doesn't convict me of everything at one time.
Yep.
It's not one of those things where I'm going to hell if I don't change all my sinful ways right now. God, it's all based on invitation, and there's a rhythm. I like how you said a battle rhythm to how God leads me through things, because there are things now that I'm addressing and that I'm figuring out that 10 years ago I wanted to figure out, but I wasn't ready to.
Yeah.
And you have to get to a point where you have to understand that first you can't compare yourself to other people or the rhythms of other people, because the preparation, the cook time, the progression time once the seed's in the ground is different for everybody.
Yep.
But sometimes you'll try to address something that it's not the right time for.
Yep.
Now, you got to be careful there too, because you can make excuses for yourself saying, oh, well, I'm just not ready to make the change.
Yep.
But how do you discern the difference between something that needs a change and can be changed right now versus something that, okay, well, this just is going to be a time thing?
Yep.
Because you have some people that just don't engage for whatever reason.
Yeah, that's good. The best way, well, this is what I was thinking while you were talking, okay? And I shared this with a client recently. What I want to do, it's the old adage, give a man a fish, feed him for a day. Teach him how to fish, feed him for a lifetime, right? Mm-hmm. Removing artificial barriers, eliminating negative internal dialogue, developing fail-proof ways to succeed, ... or not, okay? And the tools that I'm going to teach you, or the tools that we're going to partner together to implement, are going to be transferable. Okay. So what I'm not going to do is I'm not going to get wrapped around the axle because you and I are going to agree on or contract to work on this. The tools and techniques that I'm going to teach you and walk you through can be applied to multiple things. Okay? Mm-hmm. So for instance, I'm working with a client right now, and we're definitely going through track. And don't get me wrong, I will help in a few different areas at the same time. If they are vastly different, and I've done this, I'll say, that is a great conversation. We did not contract to address that. Mm-hmm. We're going to put that to the side, right? And so that's the reality, especially when you start thinking about, family dynamics, because you got, for me personally, and I'm not exactly sure about Tim, but for me personally, you start getting into, family dynamics and blended families and a whole plethora of things that you can get into. This thing can spiderweb quickly. Okay. And I think that's why in the life coaching industry, what we hear over and over again is identify your niche, identify your niche, identify your niche, and stay there type of thing. And I get that. So what I'll do is when I'm working with clients, again, is we'll go after that thing. And while we're doing that, what I'm hoping to do is really teaching my clients how to fish so that they can take those. And that's what I told my client just the other night. I said, brother, this guy is moving in amazing ways. And I'm so happy to see that. And I told him that very thing. I said, because at the end of this maintenance contract, I want you to do everything that you need to do. And we're talking, because we're talking parent. We initially, contract to do parenting, but I do parenting. I wrote a guide on it. It's helped a lot of people. Okay. And we didn't contract to do that, but guess what? I'm teaching him the tools and techniques to do other things. And I sent him the guide. That's all I did is I sent him the guide. Okay. It's a short book, 27 pages. I sent him the guide. And now as we're walking through other things that he needs to do, he said, hey, I've read the book, I've done this, and I've done that. It works amazingly well, but I also did this, and because I kind of used to do it there too. What do you think? I was like, yeah, it's great. If it works for you, amen. That kind of thing. So that's my thing. Now, I don't want to put words in other coaches' mouths, because there's kind of like longevity and that kind of stuff. But this is what I've learned. And Tim and I were talking about word of mouth is the best advertisement, right? Because other people talking to other people. And I found that to be very true. And you'll hear that from anybody. But you know what else is great? Is when you stick to that formula, and guess what? That same family will also come back with whatever other challenge that they might have. You know what I mean? So you're not like turning anybody off. All of a sudden their brothers and their sisters and their families, start calling. So I'm not sure if that directly answers your question, but oftentimes just for me to kind of stay in that lane and create some normalcy or some sanity in that particular process, because we've all determined that I'm not the smartest guy out there, right? So I need to keep my lanes clear, but I don't want to spider web into a lot of different things, and those kind of things. So that's how I gently remind my clients, like, hey, this is where we're working, right? This is what we agreed to. I'm going to teach you how to fish, and you'll see through this process how, yes, you can work with this, and you'll be amazed at how good you are at this. And then we'll go from there.
Yeah, and I want to encourage you guys, because if you're like me, my life was a mess in my 20s. I made a lot of mistakes. you might be looking around your life right now and looking at all the relational blunders that you're going through, the financial blunders, the professional, whatever, and thinking, man, how do I turn this around? My life is a mess. But I think Dave's got it pretty much summed up in that you need to learn how to fish, because the things that will help you succeed in your professional life are the things that will also help you succeed in your romantic life, in your friendship life, whatever, whether it's communication or time management. I think it's so healthy. And I was thinking about this analogy as you were speaking about how trees and we're planting ground cover outside.
Yep.
And I made this retaining wall, and we bought all this fill dirt, which is still in my driveway. Oh my goodness. And I'm like, what am I going to do with this? Because when you look at plants, right, especially ground cover, it's expensive, man. It's $5 for a little plant like this, and I've probably got like 100 square feet of stuff I need to cover out there, and that's like really expensive. So if you look at your life in the same way of, I've got all this area that I need to cover, but my resources will only let me afford this. You just have to understand that when you plant a seed, or when you plant something, if you nourish it, it's going to grow and it's going to spread. Same thing with families. If your family sees you turning around, the Bible says that they will know you by your fruits.
Yeah.
Right? So the way that Dave's living his life, if he had stayed in that place where he was believing negative internal dialogue and he was believing these artificial barriers, that's what he would have brought into his marriage. But because he turned things around, because his wife has worked on things that she needed to work on, those things are spreading, and that's what influence is, guys. If you have somebody in your life where you thought to yourself, man, why does it feel so encouraging, so inspiring to be around these people? That is those learning how to fish processes spreading, and you pick up on those.
Yeah.
Like if I learn boundaries with my wife or with my friends, that's going to spread my relationships with partners or with clients. If I have a client calling me at 2 a.m., it's like, no, dude. Like with my friends, I don't let them call me at 2 a.m. unless it's a big thing, because I'm either sleeping, I have personal time, or I have like time with my wife, whatever. So you can relax if you got a lot going on. Just learn how to fish. Learn those small processes. The progression time is so necessary.
Yeah.
And you can't expedite that. Every time you try to expedite that, you're going to shortchange yourself, and you're worth a lot more than that.
Yeah. And I think Tim and I are able to share what we're able to share, and with the passion that we're able to share, because we went through it.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, again, I'm not perfect. My wife and I, we've been together for 32 years, married for 31 years, but oh my goodness, I can tell you the stories, but we're confident at premarital counseling. We're confident at marital counseling. I can sit next to a man who cannot stand being in the same room with his wife and look at him and say, you will love your wife again. You will. As a matter of fact, you do. You just don't know where it is right now. You will love her. You know how I know? I was you. And so I'm going to, this is my last month as a teacher at high school, and I'm going to do life coaching full time, right? I'm retired. And so my wife and I, and if you're an older couple or if you're an older person, you've been married for a long time, hear me even if you're a young couple, or if you're going to get married, when you get married, do yourself and your spouse a huge favor. Practice doing life together. My wife and I have been practicing. We've been empty nesters for like 9 or 10 years. Our kids are old and they've been in college. They're having their own kids and stuff. And guess what? What you don't want to do when your kids go to college or when they leave is you don't want to be sitting across the table looking at a stranger. When they're young and you can afford a sitter or something to that effect, if your in-laws or somebody lives right next door, guess what? Once a week, you need to drop those kids off and you need to go I don't care if you got $10 in your pocket. Go grab a sandwich or go grab a coffee somewhere, look at each other and talk about anything but your kids. You know what I mean? And practice communicating to each other and knowing that person who's sitting across from you.
Mm-hmm.
You know? And I mean, I can't stress that enough, because 4 weeks from now, when my wife and I are really looking forward to it. And when we wake up in the morning, we're not going to wake up and then she's going to go do something for 8 hours. And then I'm going to go do something for 8 hours. And then we're going to come back together at the dinner table at 5 o'clock in the evening and say, how was your day? That's not how retirement's going to go. We're going to do life together every day. But that takes practice. That takes years of practice,
Mm-hmm.
years of dating, weekends spent together. It takes practice, and that's okay. And is it going to be absolutely perfect? No, it's not going to be absolutely perfect. But we're banking on another 30 years.
Yeah, and I think a key ingredient to that too is intentionality.
Yes.
Because the older I get, the more I realize that I'm not just a happenstance of circumstances. Well, in grade school, I had a lot of friends due to circumstance. I had a lot of associations and a lot of thoughts because of circumstance. I bought and wanted specific clothes because of circumstance. And now that I have all this choice, it's paralyzing. I think that's one of the biggest issues transitioning into adulthood is having the ability to choose people, professions, what I do with my free time, what I do with my recreational things. Am I going to do something healthy like work out, or am I going to do something unhealthy like smoke marijuana? Yeah, it's those choices, and you have to be very intentional to water the things that you want to grow and to starve the things that you want to die.
That's right.
And unfortunately, a lot of people convinced of society think, okay, I need to water my finances. That's important, but everything's a trade-off. You can't, the Bible says this too, you can't serve both God and mammon. You can't serve God and money. And what I mean by that is you cannot love properly if you're focused on yourself, But I guess, do you have anything in closing that you want to communicate?
Just real quick. I had the opportunity a guy reached out to me via the website, stupidtofail.com.
Shameless plug.
Yeah. But potentially the largest contract that I've had to this point. Okay. And this is what he said in that email. Goes back to dating your spouse. He said, I'm free every Saturday. And then probably every other week I'm free during the weeknight. Okay. Saturday is our date day. Okay. My wife and I have been together for 32 years. I'm going to start doing Too Stupid to Fail that's going to be my gig after I'm no longer teaching high school. This is potentially the largest contract. And I was told that you get, 2 or 3 of these contracts and you're on easy street, right? My wife and I date on Saturdays. We've been dating on Saturdays for 3 years. Nobody touches Saturdays. My wife is my priority on Saturdays. Guess when we're meeting? Tuesday evening. Because nobody gets in front. God every day, right? Sunday, right? We do, we're leaving here. We got worship night tonight at Awake. We did church this morning. We had lunch. We watched a little bit of PBA because we're avid bowlers. But, and so he emailed and I got excited. I was like, oh my gosh, this is a pretty sweet possibility, right? Mm-hmm. And he said, we can meet on Saturdays. I'm free Saturdays. And sometimes I'm free on the weeknights. What works best for you? I said, Tuesday night at 5 o'clock. Mm-hmm. And he said, okay, let's meet Tuesday night. Why? Because Saturday, I prioritize my wife. And that's how you practice 30 years or 50 years or whatever God gives us on this side of heaven.
And kind of taking that back to what he was saying about learning to fish. A big reason why people's lives fall apart is because they let the little rocks take the place of the big rocks, and they don't even know what the big rocks are. When I engage with people and I ask them, what are your priorities? A lot of people just I go to work I pay my bills. Okay, well, maybe that's why your relationships are failing, because work and bills are your first priority instead of those.
That's right.
So, learning, oh man, two things. Go to Amazon, buy the book Boundaries. They have boundaries in marriage, boundaries with your teen, boundaries, professional, just the book Boundaries, whatever. It will change your life. There's also something that a therapist friend gave me for Christmas. Once again, go to Amazon. It's called The And. THE space and. It's a game that you can play to build a relationship where you just sit down, you touch one another, you pick 3 questions from the card deck, and you just ask those questions, and then you practice responding. And some of them are superficial, like, when was the last time you felt cherished by me? Or what is something that you're hesitant to tell me? Or what did you first think of me when we met? The person will say it, and then you respond, okay, well, why did you feel that way? Why did you respond that way? What were you thinking that way? And learning that communication is so key to building relationships. So Boundaries, you can see it in the link below this video. I'll link that, and the And game. They have a friendship edition. They have a couples edition. Have you ever used tools like that?
No, but I felt cherished when you touched my arm. That was nice.
Yeah. Well, you have anything else you want to say real quick?
You know what, man? God loves you. Tim and I love you. You can just tell Tim's a great guy. It's okay. And this is what I would say. Give yourself permission to get help where you need help. It's okay. Yeah, man, we love you, and hopefully we'll see you out there.
Yeah, and one more shameless plug for Dave. His name is Dave Martin. You can find him on social media. What platforms are you on?
So I'm on Facebook. I do have YouTube. You can find it under Too Stupid. Everything's under Too Stupid to Fail.
Gotcha, and that's T-O, stupid. Yeah. Actually, it's tostupidtofail.com.
That's right.
And the actual business is T-O-O?
Yeah.
Okay, just clarifying. And on YouTube, what is the handle?
It's Too Stupid to Fail.
With 2 O's, right? Okay, just making sure. So the website is 1 O, everything else is 2 O's.
Yeah.
But yeah, guys, thanks for watching. If this video has helped you in any way, it's free, so share it with friends, share it with somebody that you think could benefit from it. Don't forget to like and subscribe and hit the bell for notifications for when we upload our next video. And yeah,
Appreciate it.
All right.